fall session. I am Angela Paoli, Vice President of Education and Broker Development here at App Properties Christie's International Real Estate. We have a great Monday all call. I am super excited to have two amazing guests with me today, Mr. Rick Sobin and Michaela Gordon. We will get to them in just a moment. Let's talk about our schedule for the week. So, all call today, tomorrow, Tuesday, October 22nd at 9 a.m., we have our City Region Business Planning event. And this is going to be a big one. We have about 150 agents registered. Myself and Kevin Rhines will be leading this session. Laura Perez will be with us as well. So we're super excited to see all of you at our City Business Planning session tomorrow. If you have not signed up for business planning, please do so. You can scan that QR code. You can still come tomorrow. It is not too late. We also have another session next week in our western suburbs. So we're excited about that. We will also be hosting a virtual one after the in-person events have ended. So keep your eye out for that if you're interested in attending a virtual one in early November. We have Expo coming November 4th. 8:30 a.m. That'll be in Chicago at the Marriott Marquis. It is going to be amazing. Please scan that QR code if you have not registered yet. We'd love to see you there. And of course, Ninja Installation. I am super excited to helping host Ninja again. This will be November 12th through 15th, full 4 days of action-packed learning and education in Rosemont, Illinois. We bring in an awesome trainer from Ninja. They'll be teaching you amazing things to do with your business, learning how to be an on-purpose realtor versus an on-accident realtor, learning how to create really deep connections and relationships with people who know, like, and trust you, learning how to create awesome processes. So this is great, a really good opportunity to do some different things in your business and really move the needle. We still have some seats left. Please scan that QR code and register for that. All right, I am going to stop sharing my screen and we are going to get into our awesome conversation today. I have Rick Sobin here, Vice President of Brokerage Services and Managing Broker for our amazing East Lincoln Park, Gold Coast, and Bronxville offices. Hello, Rick.
Hello, hello. Good morning.
I promised I would not mention Managing Broker of the Year, but I'm going to mention it right now.
I really thought I could count on you this morning to not do that. And this is why my coffee cup is so large. I need to deal with you.
Right out of the gate. We also have Michaela Gordon with us today. She is out of our Bucktown office, team lead of MG Home. I'm super excited to have Michaela here. Welcome.
Thank you. Rick, I'm sorry. I feel like I egged her on.
It's
all my fault. It's okay.
I can handle for a few more days.
Yeah, it's only a couple more days, right? All right, so we have a really awesome conversation for you guys today. We had a lot of fun last week on our prep call, and our topic for today is how to not be a victim of the circumstances in the market. I think we can all agree that there are a lot of dynamics happening in our wonderful real estate industry and in all of our micro markets, and there's been a lot of challenges this year for sure. And so we wanted to talk a little bit, starting with Rick, and Rick's going to talk a little bit about some things we're seeing with inventory. So Rick, get into it.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. So yes, it's been a fascinating year and a half, and I say the word fascinating. It's fascinatingly tragic in some ways, but everyone sort of jumped early on the bandwagon thinking that our inventory issues just have to deal with all of these low interest rates. And I think people weren't paying attention to the real problems were things like builders weren't building, or they were just building rental buildings, the amount of Airbnbs that took units off the market, the amount of divorces that made, one household, two households. We really, there's a lot of factors at play. And if anyone gets a chance, go back to the daily podcast from September 24th. The show was called How the Cost of Housing Became So Crushing. It's a fascinating 30-minute podcast. So if you get a chance, check it out. But I thought we'd take a quick minute and actually look at some numbers instead of just sort of thinking that inventory's not so great. If I look at, this is all of Chicago. If I look at month supply of inventory, if you think about it, I'm going back to 2008 here. We've kind of never been here. For the last 2 to 3 years, these are numbers that we haven't been living at. And if I look at the number of closed sales, this number's been steadily dropping since January of 22. So we've been living in this environment. And the level we're kind of at now is similar to 2013. But I can tell you in 13, that's when things started to take off. Under contract, again, steady drop. If you look back, we just haven't been there really in a very long time. But this, I got to give you a little bit of hope here, which is new listings. Now there's some hope, and then there's some dismal numbers, but the number of new listings coming on, this we definitely have never been here. And if you look back from 08 to where we're at now, that's pretty significantly lower. But if you look, it's just starting to bump up. And we are starting to see that in our daily new listings reports. We're starting to see that in the number of contracts that are going, the number of contracts that are going under contract, and our number of closed sales are starting to creep up. So there's definitely some hope there. But what I found fascinating was the amount of agents over the last year and a half to 2 years that low inventory really didn't affect some agents' businesses. And I'm curious, Michaela, because I feel like you're one of the people who just seem to thrive in this low inventory market. And we're hoping that, your story would help inspire others that might not be feeling as, as busy right now.
Well, thank you. Sorry, I feel like my screen is getting like a Halloween spooky thing going on. So sorry if I look like I'm behind like a weird mirror. I would start by saying like thrive is a very, confusing word. I think it's been a very complicated couple years, and I think everyone who is even doing somewhat well, or having progress or great client reviews or any of those things, I think in this kind of situation that counts as thriving, because as those charts show, like this is so hard. There is literally nothing out there. But with that being said, I think I'm kind of somebody who looks at real estate, not necessarily from a transaction, like number of transactions, but rather from like my network. And so something that I have kind of always been, or something that I have thought was, very important from the start, was to sort of chase my clients anywhere they went. An example I've given before is like act like sort of the possessed partner, where they're being crazy and you like want them to go away and they won't go away. Sort of act like that person in some ways. Take some social cues, but like if your client wants a lake house, I mean, Michigan's only 2 hours away. You might not have a license there, but you can certainly facilitate that transaction and find the agent and be a part of the experience for your client. We've got all kinds of resources now with Christie's as well, to sort of chase your clients all over the world and become their sort of concierge realtor, no matter what, rather than just trying to continuously chase inventory and chase a deal here in Chicago that might be harder than it was in previous years.
And then do you find you're still then beefing up your referral network, because even though they might not be buying in a state or an area that you service, they can still refer you to people who do live in that area?
Exactly. So there's kind of two sides to that coin. Number one, even though technically that transaction isn't yours, in my case, because I'm sort of chasing that client like somewhat crazy ex-girlfriend, I'm also like with them on the phone. I'm also chatting with them about it as they're going through it. And so I'm getting referral business as if I sold them a house, even though I had nothing to do with that sale.
Love that. Love
because
that.
they're feeling as though I'm part of the process. I know we talk about this all the time, where realtors are like sort of therapists as well for your clients and helping them through the emotional piece of all of this. Just because you don't have a license in Nevada and your client wants to buy a house there, it doesn't mean that you can't continue to be the sort of support that you were when they were buying a home with you in Chicago. And that support, that's actually what gets you the referral, in my opinion.
So let me ask you, if someone's
Yeah.
buying in Nevada, do you just hand that off to our team to find an agent, or is that something you're more involved in?
Okay, so
You're already smiling, so I think I know the answer to
it's
the
a
question.
little controversial. I would say this, if I'm swamped with business in Chicago, maybe it's, you know, April 20th and my phone is ringing off the hook and I'm like, I can't do this and they need a house and like, there's just no time in the day, it's going to relo. And then I'm trying my best to sort of, you know, communicate with that client as I can and so on. Otherwise, I'm doing my best to find that referral partner myself, to sort of vet the referral partner, to build a relationship with that referral partner. And then by having that relationship with the referral partner and by sort of being the quote unquote therapist to the client, I'm then getting the referrals from the client and I'm getting referrals from that agent in this example in Nevada. And technically, I didn't do any business in this
I love
whole
that.
sort of like transaction. So I think that's kind of important as well. When inventory is low and maybe your transaction numbers are low, to me, this is how you find those numbers rather than looking for inventory that is just so hard to find. I think it's so much easier to find the referral.
That's
I
interesting. Yeah, Angela,
I-
you want to ask about that?
Yeah, well, I love that. There's a big concept that we're talking about specifically in business planning, and it's called clients for life, right? And really, I love your passion for how much you service your core group. So I would love for you to talk just a little bit more about that. Like, how do you service them? You know, it was funny when when we were on our prep call, Rick was like, "What markets do you serve?" And you're like, "God, that's a really good question. I go where my people go." Right? So talk a little bit how these people are truly your clients for life. And then secondarily, with you talking about these, you know, other brokers and other markets and you creating relationships with them, you're actually turning them into clients for life too, for those like referral sources. So just talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I guess it's twofold, right? For starters, I'm creating really, really, really strong relationships with a core group of people here in Chicago. I tend to talk about this because I don't think everyone can be like Miss Popular and have 400 different groups of friends and, you know, talk to a million people every day. I especially cannot. I'm like an introvert. I can't talk to everybody all day long. I become like a shell of a human. So my solution has always been create a core and let that core facilitate the business for me. And part of that is like going deeper instead of wider, right? So there's a way, of course, to kind of create a really wide network and then let the referrals kind of flow from that. But in my experience, especially as somebody who is an introvert, that takes a mass amount of like myself being social in the world and constantly kind of being out with new people. So when I'm creating these kind of like really tight-knit referral partners and sources with past clients, it's everything. It's from little gifts. A girl on my team, Alana Steelman, if whoever knows her, she created or thought of this great idea that I just think is excellent. Monday mornings on Starbucks, you can send a $5 gift card. Well, you can send it any day. We do it on Monday mornings. Send a $5 gift card in a text message. And I just write, Monday suck, here's an extra coffee.
I love that. Love
Like
that.
it doesn't take much effort to sort of like poke. The millennial version of this is like, you know, when people are like DMing you that you don't want on Instagram and they're just like poking to see if there's like any room. That's what you're doing with your clients. Like, here's something nice. Go have a great day. Like, I don't need a whole hour-long convo with you. I'm thinking about you. Go get a Starbucks. Mondays are hard. Goodbye.
That's awesome.
Like,
I love
that's
that idea.
social for me.
Yeah. I love that idea of going deeper instead of wider. And I also like it that you're learning how to thrive without searching for inventory. You're just sort of making your opportunities.
Yeah, and so then that leads to the next question of like, again, if the game right now is that inventory is really hard, you can certainly go, I mean, this is not like a Midwest concept, but you could like theoretically go door knock, right? or go hand out leaflets being like, I desperately need a townhouse in this complex. Is anyone willing to sell theirs? My opinion is that your chance of success is like below 1%. I've actually tried this in a townhouse complex in Avondale. We needed a house, we couldn't find one. Like, we were handing out pamphlets constantly, nothing. I think it's easier to go talk to your people and go help your people. And as long as you're putting helpful energy out into the world, it tends to come back to you. Whether it's that you're forming those relationships with the agents that are servicing your clients in other states, whether it's that you're personally reaching out and DMing other Christie's agents that like have cool content on Instagram, and you know, are saying like, hey, this is so cool. How did you make this? Like, they're going to want to share with you because they're proud of it. Right. And so then all of a sudden you have like this new internet friend. And I would say like build those internet friends, because they're going to bring you the quote unquote inventory or the deal.
I like that. So I'm going to say something controversial, because if you know, it's always fun to do that. I don't believe that closings drop in an election year. I've never seen it happen. I've never seen this huge dip in sales because people are waiting to see who the president is and then they can decide where they want to live. I've never seen that actually happen. So, but moving into what we typically people want to blame on a slower market, they want to blame October, November, and December, and they're actually anticipating being slow. They're anticipating not having any more closings for the rest of the year. You know, I hear things like that all the time. And then they have 3 closings in December every year, which is always fun. Tell me, when you're moving into November, December, what's your mindset and what are you doing to prepare for 25?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I am a little bit introverted. So there is definitely a little bit of like, fake it till you make it. I know that this is social butterfly season, whether I like it or not. I tend to take some vacations before this. I tend to try to fill up my own cup as much as possible, because I need to go out into the world and be a bit of a social butterfly. Whether I like it or not. And I think for those people who aren't being invited to 400 different holiday parties and aren't being asked to these things, it's kind of our job to force them on ourselves, which is harder for some than others. Some people are like, this is like the season to thrive. And for some of us, it's a little harder. But I do think like you've got to be a social butterfly. You've got to go to everything you can go to. I try and pick and choose where I think makes the most sense. So like, this is also controversial. Our holiday parties are excellent. Everyone should go. But if you're going to a party on a week that you've got 3 other parties and that party isn't going to bring you anything in the new year, that might be the one to drop. But go to the parties where you think that there's going to be a connection that is made, or a CRM ad, or something that you can build off of. And this is the time, because everyone's going to be out and everyone's going to be asking questions. I also, for whatever reason, lots of people have housewarming parties like around holidays because they bunch them together. I think housewarming parties are the #1 place realtors should be. I think you should sponsor it. I think you should throw the damn thing. I think you should put a bulletin of yourself in front of it. Like, do whatever you need to do to be at the housewarming. And then this is not something that was taught. I sort of took what was taught and threw them in garbage can. I don't send holiday gifts. I don't send holiday gifts. I don't send holiday cards. I think people are being inundated with those things. And again, as somebody who would rather have a one-on-one conversation than like be in a huge crew, to me, the holiday cards feel the same way. I don't want my card in a bunch with 47 others. I would like to be one of one, max one of 2. And so I send what is sort of historically a holiday gift or a holiday card. I send New Year's cards 2 weeks after New Year's, when everybody's mailbox gets dry and sad. That's when my cards arrive.
I love that.
So
Let me ask you when you.
we
Oh,
talked about
sorry,
like
Angela.
that's okay. We talked about like the winter months just being kind of depressing, right? Especially in Chicago where like it's cold and it's snowy and like nobody wants to leave their house, right? And once like all of the lovely holiday fun things are over, like we're a little sad about it and like a little depressed about it, right? So I love that you're coming in at a time where everything is quiet and here you are, with a little ray of sunshine. So I love that.
Yeah, like I'll do like I accidentally sort of had like an Instagram viral situation happen a couple years ago with Valentine's Day cards. It was like a whole thing with the post office was stealing candy inside of them. It was very complicated, but the point was that like it became a whole thing because people had nothing else to like focus on. It was like early February, there was nothing to do. It was freezing. It was like snowed. It was like minus 40 degrees. And then all of a sudden you're top of mind. I don't know that you're top of mind December 26th when your card shows up. Like those people have also been to 400 parties over the last 3 weeks. I don't think anybody is top of mind.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question about when you show up at your holiday gatherings? Do you have a system? Do you show up as as you described, the crazy ex-girlfriend that you can't get rid of? Or do you show up as the resource? Or do you show up as a combination of such?
I think I show up as the resource. I'll give an example. A client of mine, they bought a property actually over a year ago, but they had their housewarming at the end of summer. They were like renovating, whatever. And I live in River North. I talk about casino stuff all the time for whoever's familiar. I talk about it on my Instagram all the time. I'm obsessed with casino stuff. And this client used to live over by me as well before they bought their new property. And so somebody at the party was asking me about casino stuff because they knew me. And then other people kept coming up and people were asking me if I worked for the casino. Okay, this is where we got to, that I worked for Bally's. Like there was a rumor through the whole party that a lady who works at Bally's is here. At which point I was like, hold on a second, guys. We've really missed the mark. I sell real estate. But I happen to know a lot about this sort of neighborhood thing happening because I'm a neighborhood expert. And I think being the resource is going to get you a lot further in a sort of group party setting than, just sort of becoming everyone's best friend. I certainly made some friends. I certainly got some new Instagram followers. Those people went into the CRM. Most of them told me about their realtors, right? Like, it's not always that you go to a party and everyone's like, wow, I was thinking I needed a realtor this morning. Thank God you're here. But as a resource, that's interesting. That's no different than reading a news article, right? There's no max news articles you're going to read, but there are max realtors you're going to talk to. And so I think in the party setting, being a resource is easier. It's an easier way in. And then from there, if you can spiral it later in a more one-on-one setting as the ex-girlfriend who isn't leaving, you might have more success.
I love that because it's really, you're like the epitome of adding value outside of a transaction, which is another really big theme that we have for business planning this fall. And you're just hitting them everywhere, right? Because most of these people don't need real estate help right now. They don't need to buy a place. They don't need to sell a place right at this moment, at least 99.9% of them, right? So you have to find a way to stay engaged, stay connected, be a resource. I love that you take that approach. And I think you're also adding in the social element too, right? Even though that's really not your forte, but you have to fake it till you make it, but you're adding in that soft, warm and fuzzy social element and that connection element, but you're also being like a tried and true professional and a resource for these people. So it's really a blend of both of those that I think is so awesome.
And I do think too, right? Like even, so like an example we talked about, even if you get a referral and you're chatting with this person and they're like, oh, I think I need to XYZ or sell my place or buy my place, whatever they're thinking. In my opinion, it's not our job to just like do whatever the client said they need, right? Like you go to Best Buy and you say, I need a laptop. And then the person there gives you all the information you need. And then you make a decision, right? They don't just like hand you a laptop and you walk out and like, you didn't ask any questions and they didn't listen to your needs. We have to be the expert. And so even when a client comes and says, I want to do XYZ, I listen to what they're saying, I process that information, and then I regurgitate back what I actually think is their best, step forward. And sometimes that isn't a transaction in that very moment, or it's not the transaction they think they need, right? They're operating on minimal information a lot of times, and we're supposed to be operating on max amount of information most of the times. And so that's kind of to your point. It's like, if you're the resource, the transactions, the inventory, all these things follow. But if you just start there, I think it dries up, because no one's referring like somebody because, oh, she writes great emails, or like she, writes an email every day. They're referring because they feel like you are helpful and
Yep.
you are protecting them and you are all these things. So I think lean that way.
I
Yeah, I
love
love
it.
your example of, hey, I just want to sell my unit because there's going to be a special assessment. And that's where you take over and be like, whoa, let's
Like,
talk about
it's
that.
not going to solve any of your problems.
There
You
you
still
go.
owe 60 grand.
There you go.
Like, it's not, but the general public doesn't always know that. And fair enough, right? They know the things in their jobs. They are the experts in their fields. And if we're just chasing, oh, thank God, one more transaction for the month, I'll have a closing in December, as Rick said, right? If you're chasing that, that's great. You're going to sell this thing. She's going to have to pay 60 grand in a special. She's going to be crying in the corner, and the end.
Yep.
It's
One
the
thing
end
I
of that
love, one
referral
thing I
story.
love about November and December that a lot of people forget all the time is there's a whole subset, there's a whole section of buyers that are literally waiting until November and December because they know those are the deal months. And that always has agents being like, I'm surprised I have a closing. I have another closing. So I'm actually looking forward to it.
And that's something I even told this girl with the special. I'm like, listen, I don't actually think we need to sell your place, but we're going to rent her. There's a million steps to this process. But I was like, if we buy something, and she's looking to buy something else, if we're going to buy something, let's do it now. You're going to get somewhat of a deal on it. We rent your place by the time you close in the spring. And all of a sudden we've equaled out your, worst case, best case scenarios. But she didn't know that, right? That's for us to know and for us to show them and provide that info.
Michaela, let's you and I keep talking because we're right at 9:30 and
Yeah.
Angela's going to start panicking. She's going to start flipping out. But if we keep talking, we go over. I
No,
just
we're cut.
I
We're
want to see what
9:30.
her face does when she's like panics that we're going over time.
We're over. Angela, your turn.
It's 9:30, guys. Really quick question for you, Michaela. How many out-of-state referrals are you getting in a year? That was asked in the chat.
Yeah. I would say it varies between, well, am I getting or am I sending? Or can I clump them together? Because I don't know the answer separate.
Do it together. Just
I
estimate.
would say somewhere in the realm, year to year different, between 5 to 10.
That's awesome.
Big number.
Yeah. Yeah. Like to answer, I just sent one to Vancouver. I just got one from Connecticut, and that was in the last 2 weeks.
Awesome.
So awesome. Well, I think you guys have shared a ton of information on how to create those clients for life, how to not be a victim to, inventory problems and all the other problems that we have in this industry. So thank you for sharing all that information. It is now it's 9:31, Rick. I'd love to close with you guys share a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of motivation just to send off our audience for the week. So Rick, do you want to start?
Yeah, my only advice is please don't listen to other agents telling you that the market's slow or busy, because what people tell you and what's really happening in the world are generally not usually the truth. Make your own reality, make your own happiness. Don't rely on other agents or other people for it.
Make your own reality. Love it. Amen. Michaela, you?
Kind of along the same route, but as I've talked about, I'm an introvert. There are girls on my team who are extroverts. When you see somebody going and doing mass amounts of stuff, if it's not in your wheelhouse, do what you can do. And that's great, because you're going to show up as you, and that's going to be far more productive than you showing up as somebody else, because no one's going to be attracted to that energy.
Love that.
Yeah. And if you're doing what you love, you just pour more energy and it shows, right? And effort, and people can see that. So be authentic. Love it. Thank you guys so much for being with us today and being our panelists. I hope everybody has a great week. Remember, make your own reality and you do you. Have a great week, everybody.